No idea how we got here. Appreciative, but I have no clue how we made it to 100 movie reviews together. Thank you for that, though. And I've always had a pretty good idea what I wanted the movie to be if we got to this number. And it breaks a few rules because my heart resides in the 80s. But I can honestly tell you that as a 15-year-old wayward kid, this movie lived in my mind for days after I saw it for the first time. I'm talking days. Just the way everything fit together in it, the turns that it took, and that extremely sharp, heartbreaking twist at the end of the film. Now, fully knowing my mother took me to this movie just so she could stare at Brad Pitt, I didn't even care about that because Brad Pitt is awesome in 1995 Seven. But now it's been a couple of years since the last time I sat down with Seven, and I'm curious if 30 years later, this movie ages gracefully. Probably the first thing I really need to mention is the city and the way this city felt in this movie. It almost feels like another of the co-stars in that it's so present and it's so overwhelming and grimy, and it just feels desperate and just gross. They never name the actual city that the story is supposed to be taking place in, but it gives the tone of the film the perfect kind of atmosphere for these characters to navigate their lives through. And it's a simple opening to the film because Morgan Freeman is playing Detective William Somerset. He's getting ready for one of his last few days on the job, and he gets called away to a murder, which is a consistent occurrence in this film and in this city. And at that murder is where he meets Detective David Mills, played by Brad Pitt. Now, Mills is presumably the replacement for Somerset. Right away, you get the feeling that Somerset is just annoyed by the presence of Mills. He understands the necessity because somebody's going out, so somebody has to be coming in. But he can't figure out why Mills would choose, of all cities to choose, why would he choose to come work in this city? It completely stumps him, and that's our cold open. We get to some chilling title screens. We're serenaded by Trent Reznor and Nine Inch Nails. Perfect fit for the movie. We get someone cutting off their fingertips, grotesque scrapbooking. And if you're paying attention to the names that are actually on the screen instead of the horrific images that the title credits give us, there is an awesome, absolutely awesome cast in this movie that we'll run down as we go through what happens over the course of this 2-hour runtime. So Monday rolls around and we're right into the fray with our pair of detectives, both new and old, finding a man dead in his house, a condemned looking house. I mean, this house is run down. It fits the city perfectly, but he's face down in a bowl of pasta. And that is just, the visual of it is very gross. This dude is huge. He's got bound feet. He's got bound hands. The autopsy that they wind up performing on this guy is disgusting to look at. They find a bruise on his temple, consistent with a gun being pressed to his head, and they deduce that he was forced to eat this canned pasta until his stomach essentially burst. Now, Somerset knows this is the beginning of something. He explains it to his captain, which is played perfectly by R. Lee Ermey. A great addition to this cast. He's so good in anything he's in. And he knows this is the work of somebody who's not going to stop with one. There's more out there. And with Somerset being a week away from leaving for good, from being done with police work, he doesn't want any part of it. He also doesn't think that Mills, who's new, should have any hand in it either. And that offends Mills considerably because Mills, young, brash, wants to make a name for himself, wants to get in there and let everybody know who he is and why he's there. Whereas Somerset, just a deliberate, devil is in the details kind of cop. And he knows that this sort of act of violence it is not a singular act. There's going to be a follow-up to this. Now, he ends up sticking Somerset with the case anyways. And then he winds up handing something else over to Mills. Then we wind up running into Mr. Richard Roundtree. Great actor, great casting. Doesn't really have a whole lot to do here. It feels like he's the police commissioner who is doing an interview about a high-profile murder of a defense attorney in his office, I believe it is. And this is the case that Mills winds up with. Now, he gets up there and the guy has been forced to mutilate himself. And when Mills finds the body, also in front of the guy is the word greed written out on the carpet in blood. Now there's a scene here that I just love, and it probably flies under the radar considering how amazing this movie is, but Somerset's sitting there and he's talking to his captain, played by R. Lee Ermey, and they're chatting about the future. And the captain's kind of chiding him a little bit about retiring. Oh, what are you going to do? I can't imagine you doing anything else. And Somerset explains that he doesn't understand that place they're in anymore, that city. Again, this sells the city perfectly because he's saying that he read a story just that morning about a man who was robbed, and as the man is laying there, after everything's been taken from him, the assailant stabs the guy in both of his eyes. And he sells it so well. And R. Lee Ermey sells it so well because R. Lee Ermey, the captain here, he knows he's read the story that morning. He knows that sort of violence is just an all the time occurrence. And Morgan Freeman just feels exhausted from it. Simple scene. Maybe it took a minute of screen time, but it gives the relationship between Somerset and his captain some depth. And it gives us a little bit of history between the two. And anytime we can get R. Lee Ermey on screen, I'm all for it. He's so good in those Texas Chainsaw Massacre movies. I'm a big fan of the guy. New evidence winds up leading Somerset back to the apartment of the big guy, and he winds up finding the word gluttony written on the wall behind the refrigerator along with a note. The note reads, "Long is the way and hard, out of hell leads up to light." This winds up linking both of these murders together. And then Somerset explains to both Mills and the captain about the 7 deadly sins. Tells Mills and the captain they can expect 5 more of these murders. Still wants nothing to do with it, but he does take a night out of his busy schedule, goes to the library, also a great scene. He's giving the security guards a hard time about playing poker when they're surrounded by books of knowledge. But he spends the night in the library looking up the 7 deadly sins, Dante, and all things pertinent to this developing case, makes a lot of copies, drops it on Mills' desk, and walks away. We get to Wednesday morning, and Mills, who cannot read the original text from any of these books, he just cannot commit to it, winds up getting the Cliff Notes version from a kind officer who drops him off a care package. They're in the office, though, both Mills and Somerset, and Detective Mills' wife, Tracy, calls, speaks to her husband before asking to talk to Somerset. So they have a conversation. Turns out Tracy has invited Detective Somerset over for a supper that evening. Gwyneth Paltrow, she's amazing here. She's amazing in this movie. She's amazing in general, but she really feels out of place. Like, she just looks out of place. She is just this bright light in this dark, dingy city with these dark, dingy, awful people doing these terrible things to one another. And it's meant to feel that way. It's well done that way. It's really, and when we get to those conversations later about why she's there, it makes a lot more sense. But that's the first thing that sticks out. She answers that door with a giant smile on her face, and immediately it's just cozy. This wretched little movie about these awful things, it lightens up immediately. And you can tell from this scene that Tracy does not want to be there in that city because Somerset asks what brings them here, or more specifically, how are you feeling about your new home? And then he tells her, don't worry about it, you get numb to it after a while, which is probably not what you want to hear as a new resident of a town. Sells the disparity of the place perfectly, I thought, before a train comes by and shakes the entire apartment. Now that scene, that moment, great joke, great laughs between all three of them as Somerset breaks the tension and jokes about the soothing, vibrating house. And they all just belly laugh about that. Plus, this scene and this interaction between Tracy and Somerset gives Tracy someone else to confide in if she needs to. And we would see later that she, in fact, actually needs to. There's a photo of the lawyer's wife with bloody circles around her eyes that leads the detective to show her pictures from the crime scene to see if anything's out of place. And sure enough, after some tears, she does determine there's a painting there that's upside down. So the guys go back, pull the painting, and they start to dust once they can't find anything on the painting or in the painting. They dust the wall and start to see fingerprints. So they call their fingerprint tech in there, and man, he sprays it, and in fingerprints spells out the word "help me." Now, this scene, or the dialogue during the scene, was featured in the trailer, and it was so gripping that it really drove you to want to see the movie, and it still somehow doesn't do that scene justice. Now, the fingerprints that these guys find, they go back to a guy named Victor, who's a pretty nasty character with a pretty significant rap sheet. Gould, who was the lawyer that had to mutilate himself, was actually this guy's lawyer. So the PD mobilizes, SWAT gets involved, and they all bear down to go and get this guy. Now, the great music punctuates the scene as they're all prepping to descend upon this dude. And even though Mills and Somerset are as opposite as two people can be, they both agree this just doesn't feel right. So they get to this apartment, another rundown place for somebody to live, break down the door, and they notice not only this place disgusting, but there's air fresheners hanging from the ceiling, which is kind of funny, right? It's weird and out of place. Then they see a bed with a bed sheet over a clear body. Pull the sheet away, and this dude that is strapped to this bed is missing a hand, and he is almost skeletal. They pick up pictures by the bed and realize that it was 1 year ago to the day that whoever tied him up to this bed, presumably the real killer, started taking pictures. So they walked in there exactly 1 year later. This dude has bed sores. There are needles all over the place with this guy. And somehow, the dude is still alive. It's a very gross, very tense, very gnarly scene. The thing that I found the oddest about this was, as smart as Mills and Somerset are, they still thought there was some chance that they were going to be able to talk to this guy. And the doctor tells them, even if this guy's brains weren't mush, which after a year they are, he chewed his tongue off a long time ago. So there was not going to be a conversation of any kind. And then the doctor drops this great line: he's experienced about as much pain and suffering as anyone I've encountered, give or take, and he still has hell to look forward to. I loved it. It was an amazing line by the doctor, and it just goes to show, because the doctor is another significant actor. I believe he played Junior Soprano's lawyer in Sopranos, Melvoy. Everybody in this movie had something memorable to offer. Everybody had something to do. No matter how long they were on the screen, you took something away from that character and that performance. Absolutely loved it. Out of nowhere, Tracy calls Somerset for advice because she has no one else. I mean, she hates it there in that city, but she doesn't want to be a burden to Mills. And she's a teacher, and she's looking for a job, and everywhere she's gone, she cannot help but be astounded by how bad the conditions around that place are. Then she confesses the real reason she needed somebody to talk to was she's having a baby, and she's not sure of what to do. And he, being Somerset, when he hears her say she's having a baby, dread just washes over him. Like, you see it in his eyes. So he knows that this is not the kind of place you want to raise a child. And he basically has a story to go along with that he was very, very close with a woman in something that felt like a marriage, and he found out that she was going to have a baby. And the way he describes him convincing her to abort this child was, he says he wore her down. And even that choice of words is so heavy in that scene. And he's convinced that he made the right choice, but the conversation is so strong and powerful, and she's so in need of some reassurance. And she winds up smiling and even crying a little bit at the end when he says, if you do decide to have this baby, you spoil that kid every chance you get. Gwyneth Paltrow is next level good, and she's not in this movie a whole lot, but she's just so amazing. The Rose That Grew from Concrete was a poem by Tupac, and during that time frame that this movie came out, Tupac was everything, and this is shortly before he died. But that's exactly the thing. Every time I see her in this movie, that's exactly what I think about. The Rose That Grew from Concrete, because her character is so pure, so beautiful, and she just feels so out of place, but they frame her reasoning for being there so well because she loves her husband and she wants to support her husband. And she'll do anything for her husband. If that includes being in this god-awful city, she's gonna bear it. And that makes it all that more heartbreaking down the road. And when debating what kind of killer this is, Mills has a great line where he says, just because the fucker has a library card, that doesn't make him Yoda. And I love that. I love that line. I love that scene. And this, of course, leads Mills and Somerset to the library and an unorthodox and illegal kind of way to get information from a bureau friend of Somerset's, which, by the way, is Bobby Elvis from Sons of Anarchy. I popped didn't have a beard in this movie, so I almost didn't recognize him. But that's Bobby Elvis. So this gets him an address for a guy named Jonathan Doe and a thrilling first encounter with this dude. Mills, with his endless amount of one-liners, adds another one as they're sitting there knocking on this door, rehearsing what they're going to say to this guy. Excuse me, sir, are you by chance a serial killer? I absolutely love that. But the chase that we got after this dude does show up down the hall, sees the detectives knocking on his door, and starts firing off shots. Absolutely great chase. Absolutely great shootout. We get a close call for Mills that if you're watching the movie for the first time, you think this might be it for our hero. Real edge of your seat stuff. I thought they get so close to him at this point. And looking back on it, it's all that much more frustrating that they got this close this soon. Now, Mills is worse for wear. He's got blood running down his face, but he insists on accessing that apartment. And the truth is they can't do it because they can't explain how they got there. They did it illegally. Somerset tells him, no, if we find something, it's inadmissible. We're not supposed to be here. Mills acts like he's going to be cool about it. Somerset turns his back for a second. Mills kicks the door in, and then Mills again. He's like, well, I guess there's no point in arguing about it now, and just moseys on in. Now, this pisses Somerset off, but boy, oh boy, they hit the jackpot, and this place points out the fact that this is the guy. Everything you need to do to pin the murders on this dude, you've got it right there. Only thing missing is a bow on top of each one. You've got notebooks. There's no fingerprints, though, anywhere. You've got a box of cash. And the only real clue as to future crimes is a receipt for, I think it's Wild Bill's Leather Shop. They do hear a phone ringing, and they look and finally find a phone, and Mills is on the phone talking to the killer. The killer chides the detective about now I've got to speed up my work. And then he reminds Mr. Mills, I admire you. Says that very clearly, very distinctly. The lust kill is brutal in every sense of the term, and if you think you've seen everything there is to see in the movies, you're dead fucking wrong. From this thing that the leather shop made for the killer to what actually wound up happening with it, it's just tough to stomach or really even think about. I mean, it's a seedy sex club that they find this. Lust is carved in the wooden door. Everything about the club is gross, but it fits perfectly in the city. I mean, in fact, the guy at the door of the club, if I'm not mistaken, he played Fun Boy in The Crow. And I'm a big Crow guy here. I dig The Crow. And sure enough, I'm pretty sure that's who that guy is. Now, the murder and the discussion, because Mills talks to the club owner and Somerset talks to the guy that was forced to wear the apparatus and hurt the girl. And after the interviews, you see them in separate interview rooms, and they're just rocked. They are just rocked by this one. And it is really, really tough to take. The pride kill gets called into 911 by John Doe himself, takes a beautiful woman in her house, cuts her face up. Then he glues a phone to one of her hands and a bottle of sleeping pills to the other. Call for help and be disfigured forever. Or put yourself to sleep because you cannot live with how ugly you now are. Then he shows up after this murder. We see this son of a bitch show up in a taxi to the police station and turn himself in. This is Kevin Spacey, of course, covered in fresh blood, and Mills and Somerset are just dumbfounded. Like, how did this happen? He couldn't have done this. He's still 2 kills short. What's the angle? Now, this dude cuts his fingertips off so he doesn't leave behind fingerprints. So when he shows up, he's got bandages on each of his fingertips. He admits that there's 2 more victims, but he tells them that he's only going to take Mills and Somerset to them at a specific time that day. again reiterates the fact that he admires them. And I can't believe, and it's easy to say in hindsight, but I can't believe how I did not pick up on that being said multiple times. So by the end of this movie, the two detectives are friendly and they're a joy to watch. And as much of a joy as anything can be in this grim movie. But Mills, they're shaving their chest to put a mic on, to wear a mic when they take this killer out to wherever he's leading them to, and Mills jokes about shaving off a nipple and if it's going to be covered in workers' comp, and they share a laugh over that. And it's enjoyable to see them getting along. And I remember thinking there was no way that I could probably laugh during circumstances such as these, but I'm not those guys. I didn't do that job. I've never done that job. I never will. I'll never see those sorts of things. But in the moment, for the briefest of moments, it was kind of nice to see them laughing with each other. The trip out there, though, once they're loaded in the car with this killer, it's a great scene. I mean, great dialogue between Brad Pitt, Morgan Freeman, Kevin Spacey. You can say what you want about Kevin Spacey. Most people do, because he's a talented guy, but goddamn, he's a creep. I get it. But the first surge of energy from him back in that car, because he's very methodical when he's talking to these detectives. He's not rattled. He's very even keel. And then Mills mentions that he's a killer of innocent people. And the notion that somebody would suggest that those people were innocent pisses him off. And we get a great back and forth. Just really amazing stuff. They get to where they're headed. And one of the cops reports that he sees a dead dog. And there's another great line where Kevin Spacey as John Doe says, "I didn't do that." I thought it was funny. For the scene, I thought it was funny. Now, the climax to this thing, it was just holy shit. Right? I mean, it really, looking back, I don't see how I didn't see the signals during the rewatch the first time I watched this movie. I think I was just overwhelmed by everything I was seeing because I was still 15. I mean, I watched a lot of horror movies, but some of the acts committed, I mean, I don't know. Maybe I didn't see anything else. But when I first saw this movie, I did not imagine any of what happened happening. I remember hearing the audible and loud gasps from the full theater when that twist unfolded before everybody. And it's 30 years old, but I don't do that here. I'm not going to tell you how it ended. It was really heartbreaking, man. It really and Brad Pitt's acting, he sold it so well. Everything about that scene is famous. It's tremendous. This is one of the best movies that I've ever watched. I find no flaws in it. I've never, ever had a film occupy my headspace like this one did before or since. It literally broke me to watch the ending. And I would have watched it more in this 30 years, but the ending for a long time really bummed me out and upset me. During the rewatch, even having seen this movie as many times as I've seen it, during this last rewatch, I saw that delivery van barreling down that dusty road towards them, and my heart sank all over again. There was really one beautiful thing in this film, and they shattered it in an instant. And adding to the sadness of that, after it's all over with, the last frame of the movie is Somerset, who had been hell-bent on leaving the life, the city, the job, all of it. He had been hell-bent on leaving all of it behind. Now he apparently has the need, or feels the need, to stick around and help out. And that is just also, now, we don't get any more of this story. We don't know what happens to any of these characters, but the idea that this guy, who had given his life to this and saw a light at the end of the tunnel, now, based upon this act and this end, feels the need to keep on keeping on, it just sucks. It's like a punch in the stomach. But the film itself is amazing. It's a 10 out of 10. I love it. I really love it. It's 2 hours long. And sometimes 2-hour movies, man, they feel like 3 or 4. There's parts in it that drag. I didn't get any of that. And I've seen this movie a lot. And I didn't get any of that with the rewatch. It's just amazing. It's, Morgan Freeman, Brad Pitt, everybody really that had a role in this movie came to play. They gave us a lot of memorable lines, a lot of set pieces, a story that just haunts you. Everything just fell in place perfectly for me with this one. You know, and there's been dozens of thrillers and crime dramas and things like that came after that tried to capture a little bit of the same tone that Seven gave us, but it just didn't do it as effectively, in my opinion. And there's only one Seven. And for this channel and for our purposes, it ages gracefully. And I absolutely love it. All right, gang, until next time, steer clear of those sins. Subscribe to the channel, like the video if you dig it, click the notification bell. I'm Matthew Essex, this is Aging Gracefully. I appreciate you more than you know, and I'll see you on the other side.